guys, what's up? It's Shelby and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another video for you guys. I actually just got, hold on. I just got the Alyssa Edwards palette. This is actually my first Anastasia palette. I actually got it at TJ Maxx for 20 bucks. Bitch is on a bargain. But yeah. So I got this palette and I want to try it out. I've only swatched them all. I haven't actually played with any of them yet, like, you know, put them on my eyes or anything, so I'm really excited. So yeah, let's just get into it. Honestly, I'm not sure what I want to do with this look, but I kind of want to do like a pop art type of skull look. But anyways, back to our story. I haven't even told you guys what the story is about yet. Hold your horses. Okay. Today is about Mary Bell. She was a child. It's kind of a mystery. I want to start doing more mysteries and solve cases because this is mystery, but whatever. But today we're going to talk about Mary Bell. You might have heard of her, you might have not. But she was a child killer. Mary was born May 26, 1957 to Betty Bell, who was only 17 when she gave birth to Mary. And the first thing that Betty had to say when she gave birth and they put her on her chest and everything was, "Get this thing off of me." So she didn't come from a great upbringing, obviously. Her mom was very young when she had her and didn't have those motherly instincts, you know. But Mary didn't know her like biological father. To her, her biological father was the man that was married to Betty at the time. His name was Billy, but it really couldn't have been his kid. I mean, it could have, but Mary was a baby when they, you know, got together and got married and everything. A lot of people speculate that it was a child of incest and that her actual father is what am I trying to say, is her biological grandfather, and maybe that's why Betty had so much hatred for her daughter. But they were both alcoholics. Both Betty and Billy were both pretty heavy alcoholics, actually. And Betty was actually a sex worker, and she was into more of the, like, rough, I don't exactly know what it's called, but it's more like when you do, like, violent, kind of like BDSM type of sex, but she did that kind of sex work, so there was a lot of violence going on in the house between that, and, you know, Billy was said to have been pretty abusive, because he was kind of an angry drinker. He'd get mad when he would drink and just wouldn't be a good situation. And they were, you know, very neglective towards Mary. Neither one of them really wanted a kid, and they had one, so it wasn't a good place for her. Betty actually tried to kill Mary quite a few times by trying to give her sleeping pills and stuff, and also by dropping her out of a window. Yeah. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to start with. It's so pretty. I think I want to do like a sunset type of look. Take like this yellow, the pink, and then the purples. And then like do the blue underneath. Let's do that. Okay. Back onto the story again. There was a book that actually got released after all of this happened. And it was kind of like a memoir biography about Mary. And in that she said that when she was 4, her mother used to pimp her out to pedophiles in the area, and you know, she would be used for sex. Ooh, this is a gorgeous fucking yellow. Wow. Okay. But you know, some people say that you can't believe that it was just for attention, but that's just something to take in. Believe it if you will. They lived in a pretty poverty ridden area. There wasn't a lot of people who had money. They were all hard workers, you know, because you had to work to live. I mean, they didn't have any you know, money, so everybody was working. And So their kids were often, you know, just kind of left to kind of play by themselves and stuff. And you know, this was like probably about 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So, you know, child abductions and stuff weren't really a big thing. People, you know, trusted everybody because it was a tight-knit neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody, so they felt pretty safe leaving their kids, you know, home alone to, you know, play with the other neighborhood kids because they all kind of lived near each other. And it kind of left Mary to kind of raise herself because her mother didn't really care to parent her and raise her and, you know, help her grow up. So she kind of raised herself pretty much, which sucks as a kid to raise yourself like that. In Scott's word, Newcastle, I think is how you say it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how you say it. But a lot of people kind of neglected the Bell family as a whole because, like I said, Betty was a sex worker and that was kind of frowned upon at these times, so nobody really wanted to be around somebody who was a person of the night, is what they called him. What they called sex workers and stuff was like girls of the night, women of the night, people of the night, whatever you want to say. But so they kind of stayed away from the Bell house, and the Bell house itself wasn't great. Like I said, they were alcoholics, and they Billy was pretty abusive and stuff towards, you know, both of them. And the house was kind of filthy. It wasn't, you know, well kept, and there really wasn't like any furniture in the house, so it wasn't a great place to, you know, be raising a kid or even be living, for that fact. In school, Mary was known kind of as a pathological liar almost. She would lie about a lot of stuff according to everybody. She would lie quite often, and she was also a disobedient child, and one that caused a lot of disruptions in the class. You know, you always have that one kid who just like interrupts the class all the time, and it just gets so freaking annoying. Yeah, that was her in this situation. That was Mary. So not a lot of kids really liked her, and she didn't really like a lot of kids. She could care less for half of the kids there anyway. She isolated herself away from them more than she tried to make friends with them, and they knew not to really be around her. If, you know, they knew not to go around her, pretty much is what I'm saying. They actually had a saying that was, "Don't turn your back on Mary Bell." She also would tell them that she wanted to kill one of the kids, that she was going to kill the kids and stuff, and the kids were actually pretty afraid of her. But, you know, none of the teachers took this into consideration. It kind of just went beyond them. But the kids noticed all this weird behavior, so they isolated or kind of pushed themselves away from her, and she pushed them away from her. She didn't really want to be friends with them, and they really didn't want to be friends with her either. But during this time, Mary did actually make one single friend, and her name was Norma Bell, and she actually was not related at all to her, but, you know, same last name, but no relation. And they were actually polar opposites. Like, the teachers came out and said, you know, Mary was smart and kind of outgoing and angry all the time, where Norma was quiet and shy and honestly not very smart. She was actually 13 years old and Mary was 10. But to be honest, Nora was about the same. She wasn't any smarter than Mary was. It's kind of speculated that Norma had some kind of learning disability, but like that wasn't ever proven. But she was a little bit slower, so that's kind of what they speculated. Actually, on one occasion, Mary tried to suffocate another student. Actually, another student on a playground by stuffing her mouth with sand, while Norma held her down. But Norma, ooh, I just got my freaking eye. But Norman, I don't know why I keep saying Nora. Norma went on to say that she eventually let her go because she realized that Mary was really trying to hurt her, and she kind of freaked out and let her go. And then the girl went to the police, but the police really didn't do anything about it. They just kind of brushed it off. Mary also one time put out a cigarette on one of the other students on her cheek. She put a cigarette butt out on her cheek. Again, was reported to the police, but there was nothing done about this at all. One day, Norma and Mary were out, and they picked up a little boy who was 4. Yeah, they took a 3-year-old boy out to get some sweets with him in a store, but the boy was found that day wandering around the streets with a whole bunch of like blood on him, like cuts and stuff. He was like confused and bleeding like almost everywhere, and the police did get involved, but again, nothing went through of this at all. Police are just pretty much turning blind eyes. Also, this freaking palette is stunning, bro. Do you see this? I love these. These shadows are freaking amazing. Things changed in May of 1968 when a boy was found murdered in a little house that was abandoned. At this time, a lot of houses were being abandoned because they were trying to make new places, like new buildings to live. So there's quite a few abandoned places, and it wasn't odd for kids to go into these abandoned buildings and kind of hang out with their friends, because they were everywhere, and that's all they really had to do. So it wasn't odd, but what was odd is they found a bottle next to his next to him where they found him, labeled tablets. So that was weird, but they figured it was just an accident. They didn't really have any suspects or anything for this, so they kind of just ruled his death as an accident. And his name was Martin, and his cause of death was actually strangulation, which is really weird how they ruled it an accident when, well, it was unknown at the time, and then it later found out that it was strangulation. It was the cause of death of the 4-year-old boy named Martin, and a couple of kids found his body while searching this abandoned house. And Martin's mother, June, actually said that Norma and Mary used to babysit Martin quite often, and after his passing, they would always, if they saw her, they would always ask her if she's okay and how she was doing with all of it. They showed genuine concern for her. But then a couple days later, I believe, they showed up at June's house and they asked if they could see Martin, and she was a little confused, but she was like, well, maybe they can't comprehend the fact that he's not alive anymore or something. She thought they were just confused. And June replied that they couldn't see him because, he was dead, and Mary responded with, and I quote, "I know, I wanted to see him in his coffin." Yeah. And then that Monday, on the 27th of May, I believe it was 2 days later, right? I think, something like that. Yeah, 2 days later, the police were called in because a hospital had, or a nursery had been broken into, and there was a whole bunch of notes left there. So the police examined these notes, and it looked like it had been written by a child, but they... and the notes had said stuff like, you have a killer on your hands, I'm the one who killed Martin, all that kind of stuff, which is really risky for somebody to be taunting the police like that. That's definitely serial killer moves. So the police were pretty concerned by this point because, well, obviously, they had a serial killer on their hands, but they didn't know where to start to look for them. And then that day, Mary went to school that Monday, and she had written a little newspaper type of book about Martin's death, and she wrote everything down and stuff about it, and actually written in there that the picture, there was actually quite a gruesome picture, well, not that gruesome, but it was of the dead body. And then there was something next to him labeled tablets. And then the cover of it said, dead boy found in abandoned house or something like that, which is crazy. And also in it, it said that a boy went in there, laid down, and died, which is pretty crazy. And she turned this into the teacher, and nobody, was weirded out by it for some freaking reason. I don't know how you wouldn't be, but the teachers were just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Alrighty, and then on July 31st, 1968, Mary had taken this boy out to the wastelands, and that is where his body was found. A couple of boys had went out to go watch all these houses get destroyed, because like I said, they were destroying all these abandoned houses to kind of make room for new ones and like better ones and stuff. And so these boys were found this body, and the police got called, and it was obvious that he had been strangled. That was obviously his cause of death. He was laid out spread eagle and had cuts and stuff all over his body, and they found out that Norma had actually taken him out there, or had went back to the dump site and with scissors and stabbed him all over and cut, you know, into his thighs and stuff, and carved an M, as in Mary, into his abdomen. And that is when they realized that they were dealing with a child. This was childlike. So they realized that they were looking for a child, not a person. And that is when they linked Martin's death with Brian's death, the boy that just died that got the M carved. He was actually only 4 years old, or 3 years old, and it was in like the same area. So they connected it really quick and reopened the case as a murder instead of an accident, which shocked everybody because they didn't think anything like this would happen. And after this, it didn't take long for them to look into Mary Bell, because at any conference that they had for these kids, Mary was at every single one of them. She was front row and listening attentively, and it wasn't hard to pick out her face in the crowd of adults. It also came out that she had actually bragged to the kids on the playground that she had strangled a little boy. So with this information, they obviously needed to go talk to her, but when they went to her house, Billy would not let them in to talk to her, so they had to leave, because there wasn't much they could do, you know, with that, with Billy, you know, saying that they couldn't talk to her. They had to leave. But that is when a witness came forward, who was a 9-year-old boy, but he had some kind of a mental issue, so his mind was actually kind of like, he was had the mind of a child, more of like a 4 or 5-year-old. So he came forward and said that he saw everything happen. He was there when it happened, and he said that there was a really weird way of the way that she did it. She started by massaging his legs, and then she told the boy that he had a sore throat, and she knew how to fix it, and that is when she wrapped her hands around his neck and, you know, slowly started putting more pressure until he passed out. And with this information, they, you know, took Mary and Norma in for questioning. During this questioning, Norma was very scared. She was very quiet and shy, barely could talk to the police. She was very, very, like, afraid almost of the police, where Mary was just talkative and holding conversations with the adults and trying to play mind games and trying to blame it on these boys and stuff. Like, it was just, she was all over the place, and she couldn't stay calm and she couldn't stay on topic. She kept trying to bring up her family life and her dogs and like all these random things that didn't pertain to anything they were talking about. And they also did bring in a child psychologist to talk to the girls as well. But Mary had a smart way of talking to these cops and adults, where they almost had themselves they were questioning themselves if they had their theory right, which I think is crazy that she knew how to do that. And also when they picked up Mary to be interviewed, she told them to send it to her solicitor, which is interesting for a now 11-year-old to say. But they were losing hope, like I said, until a teacher came forward of Mary's who gave them their work to try to see where her mindset was at. And of course they were like, yeah, this is who we're looking for, because they gave her the newspaper that she had made, and they realized that she had marked down that there was tablets, but nobody else knew that. That was not released to anybody in the public, that tablets were found by his body, so only somebody at the crime scene would have known that. So they were like, got you. That is when they were both charged with murder and put into prison. In 1968, they were both charged and brought to, you know, kind of like a holding place until December 5th when their trial started. Their trial took 9 days, and there was little media coverage about it. During the trial, Mary was very, very emotionless. She was not displaying any type of regret, remorse, sadness, anything. I got these lashes from Dollar Tree, and they're low-key really freaking cute. Like, okay. Continuing the story. Oh, the only time that Mary got emotional was when they brought up, they asked her a question about this pigeon that, they asked if she had tried to strangle this pigeon to death, and she got really emotional. The judge actually had to put a halt on the on the trial, because they had to get her to calm down about this. This was the only thing she got emotional about, and she got really emotional. Oh, these are long and beautiful. Hot dang. Norma was kind of the opposite. She wasn't talking very much, where Mary was talking pretty confidently and very emotionless, where Nora was like scared and confused and felt very out of place, which is very, I would imagine that from a child on trial for murder, where Mary was kind of just chilling, you know? But of course, they both try to blame each other. You know, Nora was trying to blame it all on Mary, and Mary was trying to blame it all on Nora, that it was all her idea, blah, 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 blah. But they quickly realized that Mary was dominating, dominative? I don't know. Mary was the dominant one. And, Norma was kind of just following along in her steps, and they quickly realized that. But again, we don't really know exactly what happened between them. It's, I guess, just between the two of them what actually happened those days. But like I said, after those 9 days, Mary was found guilty of manslaughter, but Norma was actually set free, because they realized that she kind of didn't really play that big of a part in any of the murders. She kind of was just there. But now they had an 11-year-old girl just charged with murder. Where do you put her? You know? Because she's 11. You can't just put her in a jail for adults. They didn't really have juvenile prisons at this time. So they kind of had to figure out where to put her, and they ended up putting her in a approved school for kind of like troubled kids, I think. It was pretty high. It's kind of like a detention center almost. So 6 out of her 12 years that she was incarcerated, and then the last 6 years she kind of spent in this group home type of jail. It was kind of on the outskirts of the jail, I believe. Years she was a pretty good prisoner. She had a brief escape in 1977, but other than that, she was a pretty decent, you know, prisoner. Moved to like a lesser type of jail after those 6 years for about a year. It was more like a rehabilitation center type of thing. It was like off the jail, but it wasn't like, it was part of the jail, but it wasn't like jail. Where she spent a year, and during that year she was working. She was working for some kind of electrical something. This was because she had no idea what to do in the real world anymore. She'd spent most of pretty much her whole life locked up and incarcerated. She didn't know how to go back into reality, so they put her in this rehabilitation center. They got her a job and everything and a place to live there. She would walk to the bus station, then she'd take 2 separate buses to get to work every single day and back. So it was very quick for media to notice she was out, so there was pictures and stuff getting taken of her, and then her story got published. But then Mary ended up getting into drugs and alcohol, and also had an abortion during this time of apparently rehabilitation. She didn't really look forward into going back into society, but eventually she did. After her year, she went back into society, and she did decent, but she did try to steal from a little corner store, gas station type of thing to go back into prison, but it didn't really work. They didn't really charge her with much. After that, she didn't really reoffend. After that, she got a whole new identity and was not allowed for people to publish stuff about her after that. And she did have a kid after that, but we don't know her name or anything. Nothing is allowed to be brought up about that. Did have a kid. She had a kid in the 90s or in the 80s, and she's about 60s, in her 60s by now. And like I said, she's never reoffended or anything since then. So take this story as you please. Was she just a child looking for attention, looking for a way to get her anger out, or was she really a murderer? Was it nature over nurture, or has she always been a murderer? You know, she's never reoffended, so kind of seems like it was her acting out almost. But you know, I mean, you can't necessarily feel bad for her for the way things happen, because I mean, she still killed 2 kids. Whether she was a kid or not, she still killed 2 kids. But I do feel bad for the way she grew up. Nobody deserves to grow up like that. So I guess kind of take your battles as you please, decide, you know, all that. But let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I started a vlog channel, so go ahead and check that out. I will leave the link in the description down below. My social medias are all down there as well, so go ahead and follow me on those, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!